So I'm Nicole Burnham. I'm a deputy director with the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. And I will just put in the plug to follow up on Stacy that PRNS manages the Neighborhood Commission. And we so want engagement from the community on that commission. And it's a commission that I think is, we're interested in doing more work with and more outreach and having them be a stronger and more robust voice in the community. So I will echo what Stacy said and say, if any of you are interested in that, by all means, please throw your hat in the ring. We definitely support that. And Marcel, I can call on someone, or do you want to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead and call him.
Okay, so I'll just kick to the next person that's on my screen, who's Anthony, and then I'll just ask you to call on the next person.
Sure. Yeah, like Stacy introduced me earlier. My name's Anthony Rosello. I'm the new Neighborhoods Commissioner for District 4. Like she said, I am currently the only commissioner for District 4, although there's one empty seat left, so definitely apply if you're interested. I'm here to listen to your concerns, to bring them up at the next Neighborhood Commission meeting, which I invite you all to attend for sure. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you all. So thank you for having this meeting, and thank you for welcoming me. So let's go with the next person on my screen, which is Jean.
Oh, well, I'm the president of the River Oaks Neighborhood Association. Been around for, well, our association's been around, I think about 15, 16 years. And we've won awards. And so my vice president is Mike Bertram. He's been with me since day one. There's Mike.
I'm Marcel. I'm Jean's daughter, and I'm an officer at large for RONA. I've been there since day one too. I think the next person on the screen is Dick Santos. Richard.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Richard Santos, your director of the San Antonio Valley Water District. And it's good to be here and listen to everybody. So be safe.
Yeah. Okay. And
I think Heidi's next on the screen.
Heidi.
Yes, hi, my name is Heidi Pacheco. I work for Nicole, Department of Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services, and I'm the parks manager for capital projects overseeing the Agnews site. Okay. And I will call on Hugo.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Hugo Jimenez, Councilmember Cohen's office. I'm the Community Relations and Policy Advisor, and I'll have my colleague Marley introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Marley. I've been to this meeting before not so long ago. I'm in David Cohen's office, Councilmember David Cohen's office, and I'm a policy and community relations. And I'll pass it on to Jeff Provenzano.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Provenzano. I'm the Deputy Director for a municipal water system. That is a water utility that's managed by the City of San Jose ESD, Environmental Services Department. It's the water utility that is your water provider, your drinking water provider there in North San Jose. And with me, I have 2 or 3 of my staff actually here, and I'll go through and they can introduce themselves, but they are the leading engineering team that is involved in this project. Nicole?
Hello, everyone. Nicole Harvey, Principal Engineer with the Municipal Water System. Go to Juan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Renteria, Senior Engineer with Muni Water. And thank you again for your time tonight. Passing on the baton to Darwin.
Hey, everyone. Good evening. I'm Darwin. I'm an Associate Engineer with Muni Water. I'm here to provide support to my colleagues. I'll pass it on to Robert.
Robert might just be a neighbor who's listening in. We have a couple of them here with us.
Okay, how about Robin?
Hey, D4 resident and kind of member of the River Oaks Association for now. I'm coming 3 years about. Yeah. Anybody else left?
Yeah, I am. Hi, Mike Bertram. I'm a Vice President of River Oaks Neighborhood Association, a longtime resident Parkside on River Oaks. And I really appreciate the support we're getting from the city in terms of listening to our concerns.
Okay.
Anybody else want to speak up?
So let's start.
Okay.
Let's start with Juan.
All right. Juan, if you want to start the presentation.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so we do have a presentation before we open up the floor for questions. And so I'll share my screen now. You know when you see the slide?
Yep.
Looks good.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the introductions. Today, we will give a short and sweet presentation on the Agnews well site. This first slide shows an aerial view of the Agnews wells. It is to scale, and as you can see, hopefully you can see the teal colored rectangles and squares show the footprint of the proposed wells on the parkland. A little background, the North San Jose is served by San Francisco PUC. Most of the water is produced from them and served to you through us as a retailer with as the main water supply with main water supply. So there's projected water demand to increase in the future for development, and the Agnews wells are actually designed to support and provide for that proposed projected water demand that's expected to happen with the development happening in North San Jose. Agnews Wells sites is a prime location to access the groundwater basin, and with a desktop survey done by our consultants, this site is prime real estate to get water, clean water from the basin. It actually there's artesian conditions right now, so that basically means that the water's wanting to burst out of the basin because there's so much water there. We have also coordinated the location, the ideal location for these wells with communication with parks and for them to be in the back end of the park. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback.
I'm muted.
Oh, okay. And so they're located at the back end of the park, adjacent to the commercial Cisco property there. So moving on to project goals. We are going to replace an existing well on the property that once served water to that facility. We will be, another objective is to blend in with the adjacent park features and facilities, as well as minimize the footprint. And by allowing us to place these wells in the location where we're proposing, we'll have access to existing roads, proposed parking lots, which allows us to decrease the well footprint because we can share access and use with the other city park facilities. That also goes in line with being cost efficient, with sharing the land with parks allows us to save on land, purchasing additional land and shared use. And ultimately, it adds water supply to your community. Let's see here. Next slide is an example of the infrastructure of what a typical well looks like. You got piping, cabinets there, a little bit of an eyesore. However, this is an example of what the outside and the public typically see, and it's done by design. Water assets are critical, and we do not want people to know where they tend to be all over throughout the city, and nobody has a clue that they're even there. That's our core drive for this. Being at the back of the park, but also trying to blend in and just match with whatever landscape proposals that parks tends to install at that facility. Again, you cannot see the industrialized ugliness of the previous picture. You see a lot of greenery, and all this can be discussed and worked on in a collaborative effort to get something that looks pretty for you guys. So yeah, we will coordinate with parks on the best design in terms of landscape and greenery for the exterior of the well. Benefits. So the benefits for this is it's again a backup water supply and increased fire protection for your community, surrounding areas. With an underground motor, because we will be installing these pumps underground with underground motors. Essentially, there's little to no noise within a 30-foot radius. Whatever noise you do hear will dissipate with ambient noise, and in terms of, I know there was a question about generators. Generators would only be used in terms of a catastrophic emergency when PG&E, takes power out, not just for us, but for community throughout, right? Also, these wells, since we're replacing a well, will be the water source for the Agnews Park management facility. And also, the project will contribute funds for public art, which we can get creative here. We can do mural, whatever, but those funds will be there for public use and be creative with. Apologize if I sped through that, but that is the end.
Can you go back to the first slide? The one that shows the map.
Yeah.
Okay, so these little blue dots are the wells. Is that the extent of the fencing that would go around the wells, or is that just the size of the wells?
That is the extent of the fencing.
And my next question is, why do you call that the back of the park? That road that you see coming down at a diagonal angle from that curve, that's the road where most people will be approaching the park. So for most people, that's the front of the park. That's not the back of the park. To us, the back of the park would be up against where the school is, because there's only two roads along the side of the park.
So
and the third side would be the back.
Yeah, Marcel, I had posted up that question to the city, and hopefully they were going to provide an answer as to where they thought people were going to be coming in.
Okay.
So I think that fits with your question here. Is it timely to kind of talk about that, or was that going to be a different part of the conversation?
No, I think it's super timely, Michael. This is Nicole. I actually wondered if we should lead with that because I knew it was such a question. And so Heidi, I'm happy to jump in here, but if you want to kind of talk about the school plan, I also see that we have someone from Santa Clara Unified on the call. So I don't know if they want to, or we did, they may have gone, but Heidi, let me know how you want to proceed here. Would you like to jump in and talk about what you know about
pedestrian
project?
Sure, let me see. I wanted to see if I could possibly share the screen and just bring up our GIS viewer.
Yeah. Let me see if you can share the screen. I might need to make you a co-host for you to share your screen. So let me make you a co-host. All right, you should be able to share your screen now.
Can you guys see that?
We can see it.
Okay, I'm just bringing up our GIS viewer because I think it's a little more user-friendly. You can see the site a little bit better. I'm trying to zoom in here. Oops. So this doesn't show, the plans for the school, but obviously this side here is the school site, and this is the future Agnews Park site, and there is a road between Agnews and the school site, and that road is meant to be a shared use road, and currently, there hasn't been any master plan for the development of this site, but because this is a shared use road and the city is contributing to the cost of these improvements, we actually do anticipate that this would be more the front end of the park, and we wouldn't want to consider the school, the backside of the park. I think we would want to, have this be the shared use road, and you'd have, the beautiful school facility on this side and a beautiful on this side. And, without having done the traffic studies and circulation studies, we don't know for sure, but we do envision that this shared road will be, the front end of the park, at least for right now. I
Okay,
don't know if there's something else you want to add, Cole?
so hang on, let me just make this clear. So the center road that goes across the top there, that will no longer go across the top and connect with the Cabrillo Road that's there? Or will there be a road that rings the entire park?
I don't know that we have a 100% solid answer on that,
Okay.
but I mean, it could be. I mean, there could be a road there. There probably will need to be, fire access to all sides of the property, but that'll happen as part of the master plan and actual site design for the park.
Okay, so the diagonal, hang on, let me just clarify the roads. So the diagonal line that you're referring to, that will be between the school, yeah, that line there.
Yeah.
Will that road go all the way down and connect to Levy Road, continuing the diagonal down?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just want to clarify where the roads are.
So I know that Agnews isn't master planned, but is that road committed at this point? I mean,
This road here?
Yeah, that one.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay, and in terms of what's on the school side of that road, is there, I know we don't have Agnews Park planned out, but is there parking on the school side, or is that school property fenced, or do we know what that interface on the school side of the road is?
There is parking along the road. I don't have the most current school plan.
Okay, that was
something I can get and share with you guys.
Yeah, that's sufficient. I just to hear you say that there's parking there is what I was looking for.
I can, I'm Michelle Healy, the Director of Planning and Development for the school district. And there is parking on that side of the campus, and it will be kind of gated parking. So once the park decides what they're doing, we haven't determined whether or not we would allow parking for the park during off hours for the school or not. We haven't had those discussions with the park yet, but that is going to be where our buses enter the campuses and where all staff is going to be parking for the middle school and the high school.
And I don't mean to put Michelle on the spot, but I think our hope had been that like weekend parking, and if I remember correctly, it's all head-in parking. You back out into the, into the road that comes through. That was the last plan that I saw. So our hope was we'd be able to have some parking along that road and not have to take any park space for a large parking lot.
So is there an actual, I'm sorry, I just heard you say there's plans. So does the park actually have plans for this yet? Okay.
No, let me be clear. There is definitely no plan for the park. We've just been watching what the district is doing and thinking, right? And thinking about like, oh, okay, if there's parking there, we may be able to reduce parking on the park site. I will say that knowing that the access road comes through the park, that the common access road comes through the park, our hope was that we wouldn't need the public roads around the north. And I'm going to assume north is up on Heidi's screen. And so east is to the right, but so along the north side of the site and the east side, that we wouldn't necessarily need public roads through there, that they could become maybe park access roads for the well, access roads for maintenance, but not need, I'm hoping to not have to use any of this park acreage to build a large parking lot to support the use. But again, more to come on that. I think it's going to depend on what we plan for the park and working with the school district on what they can and can't accommodate for parking. So Michelle, feel free to Correct.
Yeah, we have been told the brief meetings that we've had with the city parks is that Center Road would be one of the main entrances to the park, and that we most likely would be able to have a joint use parking on the site. We just need to figure out how that would work, because our parking is going to be key card access only. And so we're just working out the fencing plans, and that will start working next year. So our elementary school and middle school are opening in the fall, and the high school will be the year after. So we are definitely moving forward with construction. And so we always like it when the city keeps us apprised of all of the different plans that they have for the park and the wells. We actually heard about the wells through this meeting. So we were a little dismayed that we weren't included in any conversations prior to hearing about the CEQA document coming out. And I do have a few questions about the pipeline that's going to come out of those wells. It's planned for Center Road to join up onto Zanker. And we just finished building the road. So do you have a timeline on when those pipes would go in? That road just got paved and it is complete. Whenever those pipes go in now, they're going to have to dig up the road and trench through it. So if you had a timeline on that, school's opening, and once the middle school's fully open, we're going to be using that road every day. That's how our buses are going to get in and out of the school site.
I can answer that, Nicole, unless you wanted to.
Go ahead.
Good, and it's a good question. And yeah, timing is important, and we always hate to cut into a road, especially new ones. Our timing to actually do that would be several years out, approximately 4 to 5 years from now. We do have maybe a short-term option, but we wanted to include that route in the CEQA analysis. It seemed like the most direct route. It also takes this water supply and it gets it onto Zanker, which allows that water to more quickly be distributed into the surrounding neighborhood. At the same time as the park land is developed, ideally it would kind of go at the same time. And like we do with all schools, we try to phase our construction after school hours. Summertime, definitely. We try to work with you on any construction activities around any schools. So summertime and weekends, definitely we do a lot of work when we're around other schools too.
So is this 1.6 acres that Muni wants from the park, are they paying for that land? How does that work? Are they renting it? I mean, this was supposed to be for the parks, and it was an agreement worked out with the school district. So I thought it was kind of a joint venture there. So what's actually, how is this working?
So right now, am I still muted now? So right now, there isn't a plan for a lease. There has been some preliminary discussions with Nicole and PRNS on possibilities but that's not normally something that is done between city departments. Always an option. Now, something to consider too, though, these wells in a lot of ways are replacing the existing water supply that was on that parcel, and is the water supply for the school too. In very, very early discussions, there was a consideration of potentially conditioning the school to do their own wells, or to set aside land on the school property for wells that would serve their use. We backed off of that, knowing, because we've been looking at this property in its entirety since prior to it being sold. We're out there and evaluating it. So actually caught us a little bit off guard too, to be blunt, as we kind of moved into these more recent discussions, that it wasn't more daylighted. And we thought that, at least from our aspect, in the work that we've been doing, that that it was well known. Obviously, we hadn't had an opportunity to come speak to the neighborhood, neighborhood communities about it, but it was, yeah, it kind of started too how a little bit far behind it seemed we were on the conversation aspect, and we kind of thought that we were. Yeah, so the wells there are certain amenities that we bring in, particularly water for the park. If they're not there, the park itself would have to do its own wells. And there's a couple other benefits too, I think, of connecting to the community drinking water system, particularly if there's an interest in doing any sort of facilities on that park, aquatic centers, community centers, libraries, all of that needs fire protection and water supply. And so by having these there, and then also jointly connected to the public water system, that water would then be available without having to invest park dollars bring it in.
And then another question, I'm going through questions that other people have brought up, not just me. Another one is, how does that affect the water that North San Jose and Alviso get? We currently are blessed with the Hetch Hetchy water. So does that now dilute our drinking water?
There's a lot of changes. I'll answer maybe broadly and then more specifically. There's a lot of changes right now, and I know Director Santos is there, even though with the Santa Clara Valley Water District, there's a lot of changes going on water supply, how water has moved historically into neighborhoods, and where we're going to get that water going into the future. And there's a lot of good work that's being done, particularly on Valley Water side, to try and plan for that and move forward. San Francisco too, you mentioned San Francisco. They're also going through significant supply reliability challenges now and over the next several decades. In their long range planning, their water supply isn't as reliable as it's been in the past. And as a customer of theirs, municipal water system, we are an interruptible and non-permanent customer, and they're able to shut us off at any point. We've existed for the past 40 years with that, and we have worked with them on trying to develop additional water supplies to gain permanent status. But as of right now, we're not. And now that they're experiencing significant supply side reductions, that's kind of up the ante on us in moving towards other sustainable solutions. In this case, is a little bit more on groundwater. Obviously, our goal, because we like the Hetch Hetchy water supply, and we know that a lot of the businesses and residents in North San Jose do too. And it is our preference to continue to go with that. But where San Francisco is, they're indicating that they'll be challenged in the future to do more reliable Hetch Hetchy water supply. So definitely, I think groundwater, either a blending of it or perhaps different times of the year, is going to be our reality, I think, going forward as a water supply. And maybe a final, it's kind of a long-winded answer here, but maybe a final one. There have been many times over the past couple decades, especially during droughts, where we have used water wells in San Jose. And customers notice that, and we do a lot of outreach prior to doing that. But understanding that people could tell the difference, some people could tell the difference in taste and flavor between the two water types. We actually try to run the wells then more in the evenings when there's more irrigation being done. And then during the daytime, we try to then use a little bit more on the Hetch Hetchy side when people might want to be drinking that water or be more around and tasting the water. So we do try to manage the water supplies depending upon when customers will be drinking it specifically, and maybe use more well water for the irrigation side, such as with the parks or the school there. But in general, yeah, so we're looking at some supply challenges on Hetch Hetchy, and as we go forward, really the future for us here is going to be more of a blended type of water supply, depending upon the season and time of day.
And what about the water table? How will this affect the water table?
The water table is actually quite large in size. These wells themselves will not have any impact on water levels themselves. If there is disruptions on the water supply. The groundwater is managed by Santa Clara Valley Water District. If we're in a drought scenario and there are supply side reductions on their side that won't allow the groundwater basin to be recharged, pumping from all water users in the county could draw down that groundwater basin over a couple years.
And would that affect like the actual ground level? Like, would it sink?
Oh, subsidence, no,
Yeah.
and not from these wells. They are relatively minor compared to how much water supply is actually there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Dick had mentioned that the city of San Jose has 2,600 acres of buffered land in the San Jose wastewater facility that can fit in any maintenance yards or in need of water wells. What other sites have you looked at? And have you thought about placing it in another location?
Absolutely, it's a great question, and primarily we looked at that buffer land first and foremost several years ago. That area there, the water is too brackish for drinking water, even though it's just a little bit north. It's has too much effects from being so close to the bay. So it's brackish water and we can't use it for drinking. Now we're looking at that water potentially as a source of non-potable water supply, a brackish water supply where we could do perhaps minimal treatment to it and augment our existing recycle water system. Now we couldn't use it for drinking, but it'd be great for parks in a potential or other non-potable use such as maybe data centers, power plants, cooling towers.
So what
yeah.
So what other sites have you looked at besides that one and ours?
The Trimble.
Yep. There's a Trimble. We have one on Trimble and another one down towards Apple. But those, both of those locations are being used to serve the communities further south than this area here. These wells will primarily serve the River Oaks area and up to about the boundary of Alviso. And then the ones further down on the Apple, near the potential Apple development on Component, and on Trimble will serve the more industrial areas of North San Jose within our service area further south of you.
So some of this water will be for data centers.
The other wells, these wells here are intended to serve this community. We have, we didn't bring it today, but we have a couple other wells that actually surround the River Oaks neighborhood. We have 4 other ones. We used to have 4 other ones. 2 of them have reached the end of their useful life. And so we have 2 left and we'll continue to use those. But in a lot of ways, these wells that we're putting in now are replacement wells for the other 2 that we're no longer using to provide water to this community.
How did they reach the end of their life? Is there no water or they?
No. No. They were put in back in maybe the 70s, late 60s, okay. 70s.
Okay.
And the well column is metal, and metal and water don't last long together, and so they're slowly corroding. We've known this over the last couple of decades, and we go in and rehabilitate it, and all that does is just you rehabilitate, and it's good for another 10 years. You do it again, it's good for 7. Do it again, it's good for 5. And now they've reached the point where spending money on rehabilitating doesn't give you that benefit of the asset anymore.
And I think I had read something in the report about a retention pond. Is that part of the well system, or is that just something that was mentioned as a possible? Anyone?
I'm sorry, was that in the CEQA document or
Yeah.
in an email or?
Yeah, no. It was the
No,
CEQA document. I believe there was a thing about a retention pond.
It said, alternatively, future stormwater runoff may eventually be routed to a planned retention area in the proposed Agnews East Parklands project area. And then it also talked about an enclosure along the 500-gallon fuel sub-tank. So those 2 issues are concerning?
And I can now, I understand on the first one, when you turn on a groundwater well, by state regulations, you're required to flush it for a few minutes in order to clear out the water that's in the well column and get fresh water into the well before it can go into a drinking water system. The way that's done everywhere is that water is flushed to a storm drain, which goes to a creek and is, in a lot of ways, is wasted. And so we put it in there because the common trend, especially that we've seen, like in working with some other partners like Open Space Authority in Coyote Valley, as an example, is to maybe find ways when we run those wells, either for just monthly maintenance or we're turning them on to use them. Is there a way to funnel that water into a park setting, or for example, in Coyote Valley, is there a way to funnel that in to make an environmental improvement? So we put that in there, knowing that that might be something that the park might be interested in. It could be a water feature that has a amount of water that kind of flows through, like a dry creek bed that has some water, or it could slow fill a pond. We really just kind of put that in there to leave the option open that instead of just turning on the well and flushing it to the storm drain, that there might be a beneficial use for the park.
So how many acres are we looking at there? I mean, we're giving up 1.6 acres. So what does
whatever
that?
You want.
What?
It's whatever you want. So it doesn't have to. It could always go to a storm drain and go. That would be our normal way. We just, it's however, it's a use there that, how do I put this? We're not using that water because to us, we can't put it into the drinking water system. And so it's going to waste. But it's water that we're already paying for. And it's water that instead of us wasting it, if as you're designing the park and the features that are on there, if you'd like to use that source of water, it's available to you free of charge, because to us, it's just going into the storm drain.
So the possibility of the bioretention is really a park design, not a muni water thing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and in the meantime, Jeff, just to be clear, if you were to build and activate these wells before the park is online, you would just send that water to a storm drain system. And then as part of the park design, we could choose to pick it up or not and put it to use. Is that kind of what you?
Yes, or potential, because you haven't laid out the park yet. We'd like to obviously put almost 95% of the infrastructure is all underground. But we want to try and make sure that we do it in step with your layout of the park. So I think as an interim possibility would be that we would just flush temporarily to dirt. And then as you have designed what you want to do, we would then put infrastructure in to match your layout. I think that was our goal, right? So even though the well is going a little bit first, the hole in the ground maybe is maybe a way to put it. The rest of the infrastructure we want to do in a way that aligns with the future use of that park.
So can you take those three wells and put them elsewhere on the park? Because that's the area that I believe our neighbors will come up Levee Road and go into the park. That's what we thought was the front of the park. We don't want our neighbors with their little babies walking all the way out to Zanker, over and around.
There'll be a road.
And okay, so there's gonna be another road, but the Levee Road is going to be the main road that all of our neighbors will walk to get into the park. And we want that area to be the beginning of the park, not the end tail of the park.
Overall, it's possible. In citing those, we are kind of partnering with the Parks Department on what it might look like. And I think Nicole spoke to it a few minutes ago, Nicole Burnham, in that that side where we put those wells would potentially be an emergency access road, some sort of a green road that could blend in with the park settings. And we tried to stick them out of the way. In working with parks, we tried to stick them as what we thought was as out of the way as possible. It's always a potential, to maybe move them, but I think maybe a little bit more coordination here with parks on what they're looking at. There is that other road. I'm sorry, I don't remember the names.
The
There is
Center
the other
Road,
road near,
Center Road is the one that's on the top, the north
and then
side. Yeah.
the
of that.
diagonal one that's going in with the school.
That's
that I
lovely.
think
That's Libby. You know, my concern is, and this has to do with Nicole, we had for years talked about that park being the neighborhood park. And when the Irish Chan Park was being designed, I had gone to the parks people who were there and asked about what's happening with the Agnews Park, because I had seen a schematic, which is what everybody sees now with the tennis court and all that. And so that concerned me, because we as neighbors did not get a chance to put our input in, as we had always done in the past. We had many meetings with the River Oaks Park. We had many meetings with Irish Chan Park and the designer. So it really surprised me that there was some kind of a layout. So when I went to the parks people, they said it was just only a sample that they had to show to the state when they bought the property. So, and I have always made sure that whoever was involved in the parks to always let us know beforehand, so the neighbors would have a chance to digest what somebody is proposing. And all of a sudden, you know, we see about the 3 wells on the park, and the parks people haven't talked to us about it. I'm really surprised, to be honest with you. And I'd rather start talking about the parks design early on than later, because now you've got your 3 little wells that you like in that position, and that's that area. I don't like that area. I think it could be put someplace else, so that when our people walk in, we have a very beautiful park for them. It's not for our neighborhood, it's for North San Jose. We're going to have 32,000 people coming in. They need a place to go to that they like. That's why we want a library, a community center of what Berryessa has. I believe we deserve that. If we're going to be prepared for, and you're preparing for the onslaught of new neighbors, approximately 24,000 units, then we need to be prepared for our parks in order for it to be something that our neighborhood will be proud of. And so that's why I'm asking if those wells can be moved to another section of the park, because that's our premier walking in front of the park.
So Jean, this is Mike. Based on what they presented, it seemed like coming up from the southeast corner, it would kind of be a wash. When you hit the corner of the park, you either go up left towards the school, or you go kind of straight up and be, you know, with Cisco on the right-hand side. Personally, I think that the walk by the school is probably more attractive than walking by the businesses. And I don't think there's a distance issue. I think it just kind of forks at the southeast corner of the park.
Well, at some point they had spoke about that road that the buses were going to be using, coming out Levy as just a bus access road.
Right.
So we were kind of pushing back, saying, well, no, you're not going to get, it's either we walk half a mile to the park, or we all get in our cars and we drive all the way up River Oaks, all the way down Junction, then go down Center Road to get to the front of the park, which is ridiculous.
So I guess we've got a question for the city. Is it the intent that the new road and the southeast connection to River Oaks Parkway is going to be something that the people can walk, or is it going to be somehow cut off because of bus usage?
I will say in general, I appreciate all of this discussion and this line of questioning. I think in our as we think about the park itself, and I do want to talk about park planning in a minute, but you know, we've been thinking there would be at least pedestrian and bike access along the Levy Road and along the, but and along that school access road. But I think I'd like to hear Michelle weigh in on that, because she seemed to be thinking the school has a different expectation, and which surprises me a little bit, because we are putting $2 million into construction of that road. So I think she and I and Jeff maybe need to have a conversation offline. But I do want to ask her to just weigh in on what their expectation of that road is.
Yeah, so the roads, so Levy Road is our main entrance into our elementary school. And then it does go up into a gated area into our parking lot for staff. And Levy Road is also our main entrance for the buses coming in. So both of those access points, Center Road and Levy Road, Center Road is for the buses coming in, and then for the high school and middle school and all the traffic coming in from the north. And then coming off of River Oaks and coming up towards the north, that's going to be our access point for all the elementary school. We do have sidewalks. That is all of our property. And so we do have an easement with the city so that they can use it for both roads for ingress and egress to and from the park. And so that's why they are helping us build that area, and there are sidewalks on both sides. And it is nice in there. We do just have one parking lot in that area. So I think we definitely then, when the planning for the park starts, we do need to figure out how many parking spots we have available, and then how we can allow those to be used on the weekends. So that'll be something that'll happen once the park plans start getting a little bit more firmed up. But for now, it will be a nice walkway and nice bike lanes up into the park from both roads.
Okay. So I'm confused. I think I kind of heard two different things and just wanted clarification. Along the school side of the new street, is that gated school parking, or is that street drive in on an angle and park type parking?
So we are not building a street, quote unquote, in between the two streets, in between Levy and Center. We are building a parking lot. And so the parking lot is card key access only. And so we can have those discussions with the city parks department once a plan for the park is in progress. But at this point, it's key access only to get from one side of the property to the other.
So given that there may not possibly be school side parking on that road, is there a question here that might drive the front of the park to the right-hand side of the park as opposed to that left-hand diagonal and the school? Did that make sense? Nicole, I think I'm directing this question to you, and we're kind of making a decision where we're going to put the pool, the wells. And the kind of claim is that the wells will be on the backside or left-hand side, east side of the park. And if there are concerns about what's going to happen with parking on the west side of the park, is it possible that the east side of the park would wind up being the front of the park as opposed to the back of the park? And I appreciate looking at a school is probably prettier than looking at the Cisco buildings.
Yeah, no, Mike, I think it's a really good question. And clearly one of the fundamental challenges we have here is that the school is ahead of us in planning and Muni is ahead of us in planning. And we have not put forward master planning for this site simply because there hasn't been money. Council District 4 and Alviso, as many people on this call are painfully aware, has not had a lot of park funding in recent years. And so we've kind of been waiting for the North San Jose development to open up, which would free up money. And, I know that, I think you've heard from economic development that that's coming, and is a few years out, but we just literally haven't had the money to do the master planning for a park here, which is why we're kind of in limbo. So as we think about it from a park perspective, as Heidi mentioned earlier, thinking about the park opening up to the school, maybe opening up to Center on the north, makes some sense. But it wasn't, in my mind, like as I look at it, and again, looking, I'm not looking at it holistically and without community engagement. If we don't need public access roads and right-of-ways all the way around the park, that's more area that we can actually incorporate into the parkland, right? And so we could actually use that space for more recreational area. And so that's the lens that I'm thinking about it with. But I think the conversation around all of this has prompted Jeff and I to have some follow-up calls, and I think it's going to prompt Jeff and Michelle and I maybe to have some follow-up discussions to make sure we're clear, because it has been a while since we've spoken, because the park planning has been kind of hung up with lack of funding.
Okay, so I would encourage the city to have those conversations. If we're going to kind of where we're going to put wells, then I think we need to know at least enough about the park to know that we're comfortable with the well locations that are being proposed. And it seems like the well stuff is going in kind of a vacuum, and just want to make sure that you guys talk through it before you make a decision. Are those the right places to put it in the park?
Sure. And so do you meet monthly? Yes.
Yes.
Ron?
Yeah. RONA does meet monthly. Sometimes, like last year, there was hardly anyone that wanted to talk because of COVID, so we didn't have that many meetings. But yes, if you want something for next month, I can get it set up for our neighbors.
Okay, well, if it's okay, let me coordinate a little bit with Heidi, my project manager, and with Jeff and Michelle. Let us coordinate offline with our teams and then get back to you. I think we could do it by the 2nd, but I'll be honest, I'm going to be on vacation on the 2nd.
Okay, we can do it next
Yeah,
month.
I'm wondering if we should do it in July instead, but I don't know what Jeff's schedule is, or if I should just report back to you via email. So
We'll work it out. Yeah.
Do you want to just reach out to us and let us know what's timely for you sooner rather than later?
Sure.
No, not particular pressure. I'm just saying we can be very accommodating in terms of when we have the meeting.
That's true.
I think Robin has a comment he wants to make.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation and being here and trying to get this all together. I understand that water with the climate crisis, obviously water supply is very important. And the comment I wanted to make is when I look at the map, I see the park, which is also very important given the climate crisis. I see the school, which is very important. And then I see a ton of surface parking on the Cisco side, which is causing the climate crisis, why we need the wells. So I'm kind of wondering, why isn't Cisco in this debate?
Yes.
And shouldn't we just put the wells on the other side of the street and take a bunch of parking spots away, which we as a city are trying to do anyway? And I think Cisco, for their employees, I assume would be interested in having good access to that park for their lunch breaks, to interact with their campus as well. So I feel this discussion about where we put in the park is kind of asking the wrong question to me. Not the park, it's the parking where it needs to go.
Yeah, that is excellent. Cisco, by the way, had a residential. My concern is with all the new proposed housing coming down the line, Cisco at one time had a residential overlay on all their, most of their buildings. I think there was like 8 buildings. And so they went ahead and traded that residential overlay to their property that they owned on Rio Robus. So that area has an overlay, but what you see now are new office buildings. So there might come a time that the city may want to rezone the Cisco area for residential. And so my concern is you have these wells on the park, and they're going to make noise. It's going to be, especially when you're doing the construction and talking about doing it on the weekend, which we do not want to see, or in the evening, which we do not want to see. So my concern is I just feel that's not appropriate place to put it in the park. That I think there must be other areas, and Robin made a good suggestion. Possibly get Cisco involved, and because we're all partners here.
So Jean, were you picking out of what you were saying? Were you saying that there's a possibility that those Cisco buildings that are surrounding the proposed parkland might eventually wind up being housing?
Could very well be. You get somebody who wants to do rezone, and do the general plan and change the zoning on it because we need more housing. I mean, there may not be enough land, or the land may not be appropriate for high rise. Like in our neighborhood, you know, they wanted to do 11-story towers, and we said no, it doesn't fit in our neighborhood. So really, these high towers that you need to do 100 units to the acre will probably fit along First Street, but there's only so much land. So I really foresee in the future the Cisco area being general planned for high density. I really do.
It was once before.
It had an
And
overlay
it was
on it.
traded.
Yeah.
And it may come back again.
Yeah.
Is what she's saying.
President Marlowe,
There are other parking lots.
about 20 minutes.
Sorry.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I'd like to have a few questions, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not debating. I'm just got some concerns, and some of the concerns that you have. I was in the middle of the planning when this first started. I went to the headquarters at Lawrence Road at the school district. I attended many meetings, and I don't recall these discussions. That's the question today. I don't question the valuable of water, but in fact, the dissertation that Mr. Provenzano got for about a half hour is wonderful. I mean, he's very educated in water, there's no question. But I will not debate, but I'll question. When I say those 2,600 acres out there in the buffer zone land, you got to remember, every road from Sealy and Montague, I worked every ranch from there all the way to Alviso. There's artesian wells all over the place. If there's some brackish water, so be it. But you have enough wonderful wells that took care of ranches for my 76 years, and they're there. So I question that about water. But the issue is that if it's so valuable, which it is, when I went to the meetings, I asked, we have a recycling plant. We're partners with the city of San Jose, city of Santa Clara Valley Water District. Why aren't you using it? Why aren't you hooking up for the recycling water to save the precious domestic water? And the school board, the trustees, superintendents, and everybody, Mr. Adams, nobody would address it or do it. It doesn't make sense if you're saying we got to put a well somewhere when you have other opportunities. And having a maintenance yard there, why? You got 2,600 acres out there is the future, because there's other places in San Jose that has maintenance yards. They're going to be moved because housing is coming in, and they're going to be noise levels, and they're going to move, and that land's going to have to be used. So I question the decision. I'm not debating anybody, but water's valuable when he talks about the 28 peninsula cities and Hetch Hetchy and irrevocable contracts. There's always a question. Right now, we're in a major drought. There's no question. And having a source of water is very valuable, but it doesn't necessarily have to be there unless someone shows me it has to be there. And then again, why would they hook up to the recycling water? Those are decisions that would have saved taxpayers $10 million for the next 20 years. So I just don't get the erratic planning when it first came out, because I was there. And then you and I attended many meetings on North First Street and those school meetings. And even when we attended the meetings about the name change, no park never came up. I don't remember any wells of discussion. If this would, I'd say it. And I'm not debating that water is not valuable. Does it have to be there? Again, hear what I'm saying. I worked every ranch out there. I know exactly what took place. But if that's the best location you have, but to have equipment at a school, I question that. Kids are always going to be in mischief. There's always going to be something, and you want to prevent safety and so on. Just like the maintenance yard you have over in the flea market. That maintenance yard is there way before the flea market. But I can tell you, when you build those houses, you know people are going to complain about the noise, fueling up at night. When I was a fire captain, we used to go over there and get fuel at night when they have different emergencies. So I know it's going to happen. You know, it was planning there first, but it's going to have to change. So the future is going to be out in the 2,600 acres. They have plenty of land to do that. But again, you know, what Jeff said is always true about water. But again, I question, why does it have to be? And why don't, if I know if Gene Marlowe and myself and others would have been told this when it was first being built, I'd say, oh, well, we knew about it. Why didn't we say something? That's the question. And the community wasn't informed. If it was, I'd remember it, because that's water is on my mind, and flooding and you name it. So I can just say those are some issues that should be addressed, and how valuable the maintenance yard has to be there when you have other locations, because you're going to expand out there anyway. And number two, why is the water so valuable right there when they didn't hook up? And they still can hook up. I don't understand it. They tell me they have the irrigation system hooked up, but they couldn't take care of the toilets and so on, which uses all the water. It just doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of questionable issues that should be addressed. Thank you.
Well, so maybe we can answer Mr. Santos' question. Why that location? Why is it important, you know, to have these pumps, you know, in North San Jose, and why in that location? You're on mute, Jeff.
So that location is particularly important. We've done a lot of time in evaluating the groundwater basin and where the high producing levels of the groundwater basin are, and it's specifically in that area of San Jose, and that and why. Part of it is just where we are with water supply for North San Jose. Where we're going to be going in the future. There's been a lot of good ideas of, you know, potentially looking at other sites, other parking lots. And I think the answer to that is absolutely, because we'll have to do much more than just this, is I think where I'm going with this. In a lot of ways, these wells are replacing some of the existing wells. I think I spoke to that are already serving the community. You know, when we looked at this plot of land, and yes, we were looking at it from the beginning, and I apologize that there wasn't more notification as we've gone through it and all the analysis that we've done over the years. But when we're looking at this site, we looked at it as this is a piece of land that is for the community, for that area, and it could be several different uses. And I think we threw out a bunch there: aquatic centers, libraries, community centers, fields, and wells too. These wells are not going to serve anyone else. It's to serve that community. And so we saw it as, you know, it's a benefit. It's going right there. It's the water from there, and it's going right there.
So it's a matter of having the highest quality water. That's a good location for that. And then the community it serves, it's the same community where the wells or the pumps are going to be.
Yes.
Is that correct? I
Yes.
understand correctly? So yeah, and other folks had questions just about, you know, the access and so I guess we don't have plans of what the park is going to look like, because, you know, we got to get funding for the park first. And I guess this project is a little bit farther along in the planning than the park is. So basically, you know, so I think people are seeing this as a kind of an eyesore, you know, so when you go in the park, you're going to see, and from what I understand, it's not going to be an eyesore, right? It's going to be, you know, either not visible or, you know, pretty presentable, going to fit in with the landscape from what Juan said. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, our goal here is to have it completely screened with vegetation. If would be if it is not next to some other structure. Ideally, we are along some parking lot or building or some other facility. We'd like to be kind of nestled up against it if possible. That way we can do anything we can to blend in with that asset or that facility. That's our preferred alternative, but not knowing right now how things are going to lay out. The goal for us was to put the well in, but then leave all the surrounding area unfinished. And then as the park planning process goes through, we would work through those discussions, but we wouldn't actually finish the physical look of the above ground stuff or how it would be screened until the park is built. All of that would be, in our mind, would be part of the park development process. Of course, we would be funding those improvements as part of that overall project, but the look and feel of it would be designed to blend in. We'd wait till the end and it'd be part of the park development process. And then the look and feel through this community engagement would kind of blend in with whatever facilities are determined to be there.
I feel the parks should start working on the design. The Parks Department should start working on the design of the Agnews East Park project. I really feel that should go first. And because it sounds to me that the Muni people are really the driving force in this. And the parks is coming in second. I think the park design should be first, and then we can figure out where if the wells will be going in the park. Also, too, I feel if the wells will go in the park, then I think they should build us a library and a community center and anything else that we feel that is important, like bocce ball, volleyball, or whatever. That's how I feel about it, because we're going to be putting up with a whole bunch of noise, dust, traffic, and I have never been around a 3 pumps. I don't know what it sounds like. I'm kind of worried that if we approve it and you design it, then we're going to have noise, and then I'm going to feel bad about it, not being concerned about the noise and just being concerned about helping you out, putting your 3 wells in the location that you want. So that's my concern.
I'd like to maybe.
I don't know, Nicole. It's your park and our park too.
But she's the park person.
So,
it's your park. My job is to steward it. Let's be clear about that. And I really do. I mean, I feel really, truly that that's my job, right? Is to steward the park forward. I think, the best thing we probably can do right now. I hear you, and I definitely. This is not the first time that I've heard from this community in the 3.5 years that I've been here, right? That I know this space is important to you, and I'm sorry that we haven't had money to move it forward. And I think, that's something maybe I can look at prioritizing with the council office, right? I think the best next steps would be for me to have a conversation with Heidi and with Jeff and Michelle and our teams, right? And let's just brainstorm kind of what's viable, what's not, and come back to you with that. Unfortunately, I think the park planning is a bigger effort, right? I know, I've definitely heard before the idea of a community center and a library. We've looked at, I know Matt Keno was in when he was still assistant director in parks. I know he looked at some concepts to maybe, put a Bascom style, right? So I say Bascom Community Center that's on Bascom Avenue, a Bascom style community center / library space on this site. We know there's enough room to do that. And maybe I can talk to him about at least his team kind of demonstrating that, if the wells are there, what still fits, what doesn't. I think what you're asking for in terms of a library and community center, space isn't my worry. Money is my worry. How do I find $30 million to build that? So, but if
I can interrupt just real briefly, we're on the edge of the city of San Jose kind of blowing up the North San Jose plan and putting in a whole bunch of new high density residential. That might be an opportunity to leverage, gee, this is going to be the park for the new high density. Can you give us some resources? Or at least resources to figure out the well positioning, whether it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually reached out to my friend Chris Burton at Economic Development earlier this week, and he mentioned that he had met with you recently to talk about opening up North San Jose. So we're all really excited about that, because you're right. That's the key to unlocking the park, park funding. Realistically, money coming into parks from opening up North San Jose is a couple of years out. So I think we have a more immediate need around water supply and the school and managing, and helping the school get their site up and running, which, like it or not, we're all in it together, right? It's all our joint site. So I'd like to suggest that, Jeff and I get together with our teams and with Michelle. We sit down, we strategize about what some options might be. And then come back to you, before the end of the month, at least by email, to say, here's some things we're thinking about. Here's how we see this, as a potential way to kind of bring some cohesion to what we're talking about, and then see where that lands us. So I'm wondering if that sounds good to the group. And, I think at this point, we know your concerns, we hear you, and Jeff and I have talked about it multiple times over the last month, and our teams have as well. Like, we know there's a concern here and there's an issue we need to address. So I think if we take what we heard tonight and go back and work on that, we can come back to you with some potential solutions.
I think, oh, go ahead, Jean.
I think you should get Richard Santos involved too, because he talked about artesian well that is out there. I mean, if you guys can move those wells off to where he knows. I mean, his whole family is. I mean, they're Mr. Alviso. So I believe that you should talk with, get Richard involved too. And he, about the artesian wells, because that's very important. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Nicole, I was going to say, actually, I think that sounds like a great idea. And also wanted to say that's pretty clear. Well, I'm pretty grateful that it's obvious that you guys actually came to talk to us and listen to our concerns, and you're going to go off and kind of bandy it about and take another cut at it. I feel like you're listening to the community, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, I had to step away to go talk to someone for a few minutes. I don't know if this was asked or anything, but I heard you talking about park funding and District 4. Are parks funded only by district and not by the city?
We don't have time for Nicole to explain how parks are funded. I'm sorry.
Funded by the city? I mean, is it only funded by the district and not by the city?
It is city funding that flows into the district. And there's multiple, maybe next time we can, it actually would be interesting. I love talking about this stuff, and we're about to embark on a project to evaluate our park fee program, soup to nuts. So to talk about so I would love to come back another night and, maybe July or August and talk to you about that.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood what
have that. Yeah. So there are multiple funding sources, but generally speaking, they trickle down to council district. And so what you have available, so your local development in your neighborhood.
Oh, you went and you muted.
Sorry. Residential development is what's driving, our ability to fund the park. And it can be a limitation, as you're seeing. So, but yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation, but Stacy's right. That's a whole nother conversation for another night.
I just wanted to say there were a couple of people who came in on a phone, and I muted because we could hear the background noise. I'm going to unmute them and see if they want to ask any questions.
Well, if
oh, actually, I don't think I can.
Yeah, we're actually a lot bit over for time. So, I think we've got our follow-ups, and, I want to thank everybody from the city and from water to coming out. And I'm glad that you guys feel like we're here, we're listening, we're trying to find solutions. And, we've got Hugo and Marley on the phone, who will happy to be available for you guys to coordinate anything that you need from the council office as we're putting this stuff together. And I'll just give it at the 50,000 foot level. When Nicole talked earlier about, the funding, that would drive the development of the parks is kind of held up. Councilmember Cohn's working really, really, really hard to get that unstuck with the mayor. And so hopefully we're going to see some good news coming there too.
Anybody have any other questions?
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Yeah, okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you all so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.